I first got into hardware about 8 years ago now, some point in my late 20s, and my first acquisition at the time was this, followed by these, and then later by this. Now, what do you notice about this progression here? I'm noticing, right off the bat, that if you line them all up, you can actually spell poo monkeys, but more to the point, count the knobs on these bad boys. With each successive purchase, sure, I had musical capabilities in mind, but really a large part of me really did just think, the more knobs that are on the thing, the more control I have over the thing, the better. And I did my due diligence. I watched all the Sonic Lab videos or whatever, but really a lot of the reason I would get a new thing is just so I'd have more of these to tussle with. So strong was my relentless pursuit for knobs, sorry. But here's the case that I want to spend this long making. That the Volca Keys was, and probably will remain forever, the biggest leap in capabilities that I ever got when I bought a new synth. I got a Minilog a few months later, and sure, it's great, love it, but for a quarter of the price, the Volca is probably 80% of the synth that this is. And here's the crazy thing I'm about to say. Probably 70% of the analog synth that you will ever really need. Now, that might sound silly, but bear with me. I think I can make my point. Now, look, we can chat all day about polyphony and aftertouch and poles, and eventually one of us will keel over from boredom, because really, I think an analog synth only needs a few pretty basic things in order to be a good instrument. Oscillators and a filter, which both sound nice. Some kind of LFO, envelopes that work, and the ability to stay in tune. Genuinely, I think that if you've got all of those, you have got a studio-ready analog synth that's going to be up to most analog synth tasks you're going to throw at it. And I would say that the Volca has all of them. If you like, it's ticking all the boxes. Here is the Volca, and in its most basic form, it sounds like this. You get 3 voices, i.e. you can play 3 notes at once. And that's fine by me. Honestly, I wouldn't really want any more, because this ribbon controller, playing any more than 3 notes on that feels like being punished for a crime that I did not commit. So yeah, fine by me. Now, the most obvious way that we can affect the sound we've got here is using the filter. At the moment, it's all the way open with 0 resonance, but if we mess about with that, we can sculpt our sound a little bit. Stop, because what you just heard is kind of the make or break moment, I think. The Volca Keys very much has a sound, and you just heard it. Now, I like this synth, and I'm about to talk a whole lot of gas about why that is, but really, it's all built upon the foundational fact that subjectively, this sound that the Volca has very much does it for me. I enjoy it. If it doesn't for you, if you do not enjoy that sound, you're probably not going to like the Volca Keys. If you hate this basic thing, I doubt that the envelope is going to pull that back for you. But just in case, here's the envelope. You get an attack control, a sustain, and a decay and release that share this one knob over here. You get the picture. You know what a decay and release does. It's pretty limited, actually. You don't really get these long sustained sounds, which is a shame, and I'd have preferred if they didn't have to smush the decay and release together there, but the fact that there just is an envelope of any kind does put this firmly above the bracket of something like a monotron. It's so important to be able to make musical sounds, that there is some kind of functional envelope there, and the Volca has it. This envelope can control not just your amplitude, but also your oscillator pitch and your filter cutoff via these two EG int knobs over here. So you could control the pitch, or the filter, or if you're feeling absolutely buck wild, both. I've now spoken about 7 of our coveted 18 knobs. In fact, let's get a knobs discussed counter over there just for fun. And let's crank it up to 10 by talking about our LFO. You get 1, but it's surprisingly versatile actually. You get a rate knob up at the top here, but that's not going to do anything until you jack up either or both of these intensity knobs. Using those, you could modulate the pitch, or the filter cutoff, or both. And obviously we can both agree that was pretty goddamn wild, but that was only a third of what this LFO can do, because using these function controls, you can pick different wave shapes. I've shown you a smooth little triangle there, but you could also get a back and forth kind of square wave modulation. Or a kind of spikier saw wave modulation. Whoa, did you hear that? I actually snuck in 2 additional knobs at the end of that demonstration. These 2 quirky little chaps that make up the built-in delay. Yeah, this has a built-in delay. Take a listen. It's kind of cute, kind of charming, not the most handy, but it's a nice little sound goodizer, especially when you're just working with the Volca all on its lonesome. I do wish it went a little further, like you can't go anywhere near monotone delay levels of crust with this thing, nor is it very hi-fi, so it kind of awkwardly sits between those 2 extremes of crusty and luscious. And that's a bit of a shame, but lucky for us, external effects exist, and so we as modern producers are not forced to use any piece of equipment just in a vacuum exactly as it's given to us. If I were in an actual production, like, I might use this delay for flavour, but really, like, I'm not relying on that as my way of making it sound better. I'd probably just do this. The Volca Keys shines with... Sorry, I'm just trying to break up the pace with a little aside. It was getting a bit slow, okay? So don't panic. I'll be back to demo corner in just a moment. The Volca Keys shines with external effects. Reverb and delay are obvious choices, but any distortion or saturation or compression, if you're feeling distinguished, any and all of these things are going to turn the Volca, which on its own can sound a little kooky, and is going to turn it into an actual, you know, serious sounding big ass synth. Whoa, see, that sounded kind of massive, right? Almost like several times as big as the synth on its own. Yeah, I multi-tracked it. You know that this isn't against the rules, right? Like, you can multi-track any synth, no matter how many voices it has, and the analog gods will not smite you. If you're in a studio rather than a live setting, and let's be honest, neither of us are getting booked for gigs, are we? So long as that is you, you can take any voice limited synth and immediately disregard the voice limitations, even mono synths, just multi-track. Compromise for doing that is time and effort. You've got to plan your parts ahead of time rather than just whacking all the notes down at once, but probably that's worth doing anyway, because you end up with more thoughtfully planned parts that you can build with the stereo field in mind, maybe pan them about, and all of a sudden you are in soundscape heaven. My point is, all of the things that the Volca is most severely lacking, things like not having many voices and the built-in effects being kind of lackluster, stuff like this, along with other stuff that I'm going to get to later in the video, is all pretty easily circumvented just with a little extra software push that chances are, if you're producing in a DAW, you're going to be doing anyway. And I think all of that is worth keeping in mind as we head back to Demo Corner.
Will's Demo Corner, Will's Demo Corner, to Demo Corner, Will's Demo Corner.
Many thanks to the choir there. Welcome back to Will's Demo Corner, where we're making astonishing progress. So, we've established you can multi-track the Volca and get as many voices as you want. But what if what you wanted was fewer voices? Well, in that case, you're going to love at least 4 of the 6 voice modes that we've got on this bad boy, like perhaps the unison mode chord pack. This is going to be the mode of choice for your big fat leads, or in fact your big fat basses. Oh yeah, by the way, this is your octave control. I don't think I mentioned that yet. Yeah, big fat basses like this. The single voice modes like this are going to work especially well with your detune and portamento knobs. Check this out. Obviously these knobs do also work in poly mode, but like, why are you doing that, man? You're freaking everyone out. Stop. But yeah, these two are great for juicing up your leads and your basses. The portamento can take you to some really cheesy prog rock type places. And the detune, well, too much of the detune is frankly disgusting, but just a little of it can really add some depth to the sound. Like coriander, the detune knob is coriander. Moving on, you have got octave mode, which I would probably call a direct upgrade to unison mode, actually. See, this synth has 3 oscillators, and in unison mode, they're all just bashing together around the same pitch, whereas octave mode takes one of them and puts it an octave up. And now to my ear, 3 oscillators all fighting around that one pitch can get a little muddy, whereas just shifting one of them an octave up, you keep most of the weight, you lose the mud, and actually I find that you're adding a whole lot of definition onto your lead lines and your bass lines. Like this. Then there's the 4th mode, which is the 5th mode, which instead of adding an octave, it adds a 5th. This is like the opposite end of the spectrum to what I was just talking about with octave, where this one is even heavier than unison mode, but also gets even muddier, because with the added 5th, there are now just so many frequencies bashing their way about. But it's great fun. Take a listen. And then we have got the 2 weirdos, a unison ring and poly ring. Both of these are ring modulated, but they also use square wave oscillators, so they have a completely different sound to the other modes. Unison ring ends up being like a much angrier version of the regular unison mode, and you can really hear that ring modulation kicking in once you turn up the detune. Charming, right? And then you have polyring, which sounds lovely and gentle until the moment where you accidentally hit 2 notes at once. Yeah, so this one has the ring mod kick in as soon as you're playing several notes at once, and well, the degree to which that's going to hurt your ears depends on what interval you play. So your simple intervals, like octaves and fifths, They sound relatively friendly, and then your other intervals. But if you're thoughtful and you give it some time, you can get some genuinely very nice textures out of polyring, just with a bit of work. So, overall, some pretty versatile sounds, right? It sounds good, and it's got the capability to get a little weird if you wanted it to. But, wait. Oh, can you hear an elephant in the room? Oh my god. Oh, there is an elephant in the room. Oh no. You think that you know what I'm about to say. You think I'm going to start talking about how the Volca is really good, but the ribbon controller kind of holds it back, and so it really, really opens up once you get a full-scale MIDI keyboard involved. That once you get a keyboard involved, it becomes way easier to play chords and lead lines. And just how it generally turns this dooky little toy thing into an actual serious instrument. And I guess that if you thought I was going to say that, then actually you're right, because I did just say all of that. And all of that is true, but it goes way deeper. The MIDI on this thing is way better than lots of people realise. Being able to properly play notes is an absolute godsend, do not get me wrong. However, the real gimmicky YouTuber secret comes into play when we talk about CC control, also pronounced cooker control. Basically, you have no idea how much better it feels, rather than doing this, to instead do this. CC controls, baby! Almost every parameter on the Volca you can control with MIDI CC. The filter, the LFO, the delay, not the resonance for some reason. Weird that. But other than that, you can control basically everything externally, and that is huge, not just for performance, but because now, well, I mean, forget this single dinky little LFO, you now have infinite LFOs. If you just set it up in your DAW, all of a sudden this $100 synth has literally infinite modulation possibilities. Or sequencing. I mean, the Volca has a great sequencer built in. Love it. I'm glad that it's there, and it's got some really neat bonus features, but it's also only 16 steps and only 8 sequencers. That's a limitation. It doesn't even matter. Now you can just sequence it either from hardware or software with very few limitations. Basically, this thing externally sequenced is brilliant, and I love it. The only downside is that it does somewhat obsolete the 17th knob to be discussed, tempo. Thank you for your services, tempo. It has been real. But my favourite thing, oh man, my favourite thing, check this out. You can sequence or modulate or control live, whichever, the voice mode knob. This clicky knob that does not look in any way like you can control it. You can. Watch. This clicky knob here that you thought was like a kind of a discrete, rigid, set and forget type thing, it ain't. You can sequence this, use it in your performances. The possibilities are so creative and wild, and I love it, and I've not heard anyone talk about it. But yeah, it's great.
Now Will's gonna try and sell you some stuff, maybe not, it depends.
But basically, I've got a little sample business on the side called Border Audio, and I've made a couple instruments under that label, but relevant to this video is a chap called Degradation Engine. Ooh. You know how I said that I really like just the raw oscillator sound that the Volca has? Well, I sampled it, both the saw wave and the square wave. I sampled both of them, and then I sampled them again through micro cassette tapes. And what I did then was program this little synth together where you can continuously control not just the wave shape of the oscillators, but also the amount of tape degradation applied to each one. Now, at the moment, this plugin only works with the full version of a program called Contact 7.6.1. So if you have that, I guess I'm selling to you now. You can go to borderaudio.com and you can give me money, and boy would I love that. But if you don't have Contact, then I'm asking your opinion, I suppose. which is, do you want that? Let me know, and I can work on making it like a standalone VST or a decent sampler instrument or something. But yeah, only if people are actually going to want something like that. So let me know. Oh, and the 18th knob is volume. Okay. Maybe it says something about me and my channel, and possibly my intelligence, that I've been doing these videos for a year now, and yet the VOLCA keys is somehow the deepest synth that I have ever covered by quite a long way. Maybe it says something about that, or maybe it's just testament to the fact that the VOLCA is quite good. There are many synths that can do as much as or more than the VOLCA. In fact, probably most analog synths in the world can do substantially more than the VOLCA. However, if the thing that you're looking for is the synth that can do the most stuff, you ain't going to find that with hardware. Like, you'd know that Vital is way more capable and also free, right? Say that you're synth shopping. If that's the case, obviously specs are going to matter to some degree. However, if specs are the only thing that matters, a big pricey hunk of metal like this is going to be outclassed by the cheapest software every single time. And so I think the thing that should instead drive your decision making, especially with hardware, is character. Is the synth that you're looking at going to bring some real mojo to your productions in a way that a lot of software can't? Basically, the point I've been making throughout this video is that the VOLCA is a pretty much unparalleled mojo powerhouse. It is capable of doing most of the things that you would want a traditional analog synth to do. It's got some neat capabilities on top of that, and the several things that it can't do, most of them have some pretty convenient workarounds. But more importantly than any of that, it sounds good, and more importantly than that, it sounds characterful. My Minilog does more than my VOLCA keys. However, I reach for the VOLCA more often because it's got more mojo to it. And for me, in the world of hardware, mojo reigns supreme. That is the point that I've been trying to make with this video, and I hope that in some way it has come across. And if not, I'm real sorry, because it's ending now, so there's not much I can do about it. In fact, yep, this is the end. Subscribe and affiliate links, and bye.